So I kind of think of a charter school as a type of public school, but that has specific areas for people to kind of excel at.
I think that a charter school is a school that is not publicly run but is publicly funded. So it's like a private school except somehow not. I don't know.
I think a charter school is a school for kids that are gifted in different areas, math, science, theater, playing instruments, and they will go to that school and focus most of their attention on that aspect of their education.
School's a smaller, more personal school that you have to apply to get in.
Funded by the government.
Okay, yeah.
And it is, isn't it in like low income areas?
Yes, because I think they receive money from the state, and I know that you don't have to pay to go to it.
I think that a charter school is not a public school because it's not funded by the government. However, I do think that it is more open to the public versus a private school, which would be more restrictive in their admittance to the school. I think that a charter school is not a private school, it's a public school because you don't have to pay to go to it.
So from what I've heard about the funding, it doesn't really seem like it's fair if only 2/3 of what would typically be given or funded for a student is actually going to the charter schools themselves, and a third of it is going elsewhere. It seems like you kind of, once it's all compiled together, are going to end up losing out on some resources that could be helping students.
Well, the public school doesn't need the extra students. I mean, they don't have to pay for the student to go there, so I don't see why they get the money.
I think this type of funding sounds fair because the taxpayers' money is what's going to pay for the schooling, and some of the money should go to the school the kid was zoned for because it's the type of school that all the public schools, the way they're structured, and this child might need to go to a different type of school because they might learn differently than someone else, but they still need help funding their education.
No, I don't think that's fair, just because it doesn't really treat our youth equally in the funding while it's still distributed. It's not even. Yeah.
I feel like it's not fair just because the pupil isn't getting all of his money dedicated to his school, and so I feel like he's not getting all of his money put into his school to get all the resources and things that they deserve.
I think it's a pro that charter schools are public schools, so anyone that wants to go there can. And I also think that it's a pro that these children can focus on a certain aspect of their education that they may be more interested in. However, on that same hand, these children may be focusing too much on one area and maybe not find an area that they could also be focused on and interested in. So at a regular school, they may have a wider range of educational topics that they could be introduced to and get interested in.
I feel like one pro to charter schools would be that I feel like with students being able to give the opportunity to go to charter schools, the charter schools would have to be motivated to do a good job in school to convince students to come to them. So that would make charter schools more available to their students and to try to do better for their students. And one of the cons would be with them not held to the same curriculums and things as everyone else. I feel like they could be learning something different than the rest of the nation and that not really link up once they go to higher ed.
So it seems to me like there are a good number of pros for charter schools. I think it gives teachers and the school itself kind of the opportunity to switch up the curriculum and focus in on areas that are good for different types of students or for whatever groups that they have specifically. The cons, I don't feel like there are probably as many that I can think of, but one seems to be the funding, like I was asked about earlier. It doesn't really seem like all of the money that maybe should be going to support these schools are going there, so.
I don't think I would like going to a charter school just because I feel like I would be in a different setting with other people other than my community. And I also feel like I would be learning something different than what I would be taking forward into higher ed.
So I do think I would have liked to have gone to a charter school. Sometimes I think the curriculum that's kind of supported for public schools or whatever can be very rigid and not a lot of flexibility. So I like the idea of being able to kind of adjust what you're studying and the topics that you're covering for the student body. And I know I would have liked to have that too.
So after doing our video, I was not surprised that a lot of the students that we interviewed did not really have any idea about what a charter school is, how it's run, and how it's funded. I was surprised, however, that many of them still had misconceptions about it even after further explanation, which just shows how much how layered a charter school is. I actually attended a charter middle school and a charter high school in Greenville County, so I'm fairly familiar with the system and how it's run. So it was really cool getting to hear other people's perspective who didn't know about it.
So it did surprise me that a lot of people did not know about charter schools, and I probably wouldn't if my dad didn't teach at a charter school. And it also seemed like a lot of people confused charter schools with magnet schools, thinking that charter schools specialized in certain areas of education. And another thing that didn't surprise me was that with the funding process, many people found it to be unfair because the student did not receive all of their per pupil funding, and so they weren't necessarily able to get the resources that they deserve.